I saw him all last week. I was looking at the photos of him making weight. He's struggling. You can definitely see it. And now he's got 2 back-to-back performances where they're somewhat lackluster, even for, especially for him. It just might be time to move up.
Welcome, fight fans, to Boxing Scene's Top Stories, only on ProBox TV, your boxing channel. I'm George DeMatteis. Happy Veterans Day to everyone that has served our country. And we'd like to remind you to download the ProBox TV app where apps are available, because you get the great insights of our world champions and Hall of Famers. That, of course, is Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi, and Hall of Fame trainer Teddy Atlas joining us here on Top Stories. Well, IBF welterweight champion Jaron Boots Ennis won his fight Saturday in a rematch against Karen Chukhadzhian. But in the court of public opinion, maybe wasn't as impressive as many people think. All right, Paulie, what did you make of Boots Ennis' performance against Chukhadzhian this time around?
This was one of those between a rock and a hard place. It really was difficult to look good. He didn't really look great against Chukhadzhian the first time around. Chukhadzhian probably did better this time around. Boots is a bit too hittable at times. He's a guy who, the one criticism I've had of Boots is I don't think he's creative enough going in through the front door. He has a little bit of the mentality, and he's very destructive. He's a very fun fighter, and he's world class. This is not something to say all of a sudden he's not world class. He's just not your Terence Crawford type, where everybody wanted to see that Terence Crawford and Boots fight. I always felt he was always susceptible in a Terence Crawford fight, even an older Terence Crawford, because Boots has a tendency to not really vary his jab that much. He's got a good jab, but he never varies it that much, and he kind of comes in through the front door. Reminds me a little bit of sort of that sparring mentality in gym wars, which are obviously common in Philadelphia, where you just kind of meet at the center of the ring and you bang away at each other, pause. But, other than that, it's really, he doesn't have that versatility, or at least he doesn't show it, to be able to close the door, close the gap, close the distance in a creative enough way that would make you think, okay, if he's got a guy who knows how to maintain distance, like a Crawford, even like a Madrimov at 154, for example, who makes you really earn that distance and will pick you off, can he do that? He's so used to guys just meeting him at center ring, or him just being able to close the gap at center ring without having to really work for that closing of the distance, that I'm not sure that he's gotten to the level where he's learned it to that degree. When he's close at range, he's got all the punches. He's got all the destructive combinations. He looks great. But like I said, there are times where you got to figure out how to close that gap in order to do all that. Because when you're at this distance, how do you figure it out when you got a guy who's a master at this distance, And obviously, you'd have to be a master to trouble Ennis. It's not like where anybody who knows how to fight on the outside could trouble Ennis. We saw Chukhadzhian the first time around, didn't do much except just go to distance. This time around, though, Chukhadzhian showed that there's a susceptibility there. Ennis, when closing the gap, is hittable. And, you start to wonder what happens. I still think he's world class. I just think he's a beatable world class fighter. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, anybody should be beatable. Your Mayweathers of the world are very rare, your Inoue Inoue's, your Bam Rodriguez's of the world are very rare, But, he's beatable. But he's also talking about going to a weight class, 154 pounds, where there's a lot of world class talent, a lot of talent where you could see him sort of getting picked off and paying for this. But then again, I don't know, you think of him with like a Bohocik, where both guys don't really use a great deal of creativity to close the gap, and they just kind of go to the opponent, and they're high contact fighters. That would be a great fight. I don't know who would win that fight, honestly. So I still think he can compete and win at world class level, but there are susceptibilities.
Yeah, Chris, what do you make of Boots Ennis' performance there against Chukhadzhian?
Now, when you got a guy like Boots who's so talented, and there's so much, I don't even want to use hype anymore, because we've been hyped up for him for many years, and now he's a world champion. You tend to be under the looking glass. You be under the microscope quite a bit, and there's a way in those kind of certain guys where you can kind of critique them too hard because you're looking for too much because they're so talented. Now this fight, I don't think that is that. I think he performed poorly. He got hit way too much. This is 2 fights in a row now where Boots is getting hit too much, too clean, too flush. And as you step up in class, the real separator for world class and everybody else is defense. The best fighters in the world don't get hit. All the guys that pound for pound all have fantastic defense. All of them keep their contact numbers super low. But Jaron now more and more we're starting to see him getting touched up with these higher class guys. Now, that being said, is this related to the weight? It was the first thing he said in the interview afterwards. I got to move up to 54. Draining himself down, especially for someone who's so athletic the way he is. being drained physically, taking down that muscle tissue, getting dehydrated, all of that can really affect the guy. And it seems to affect, I think, athletic guys more than it affects, like just a come forward kind of bruiser type. Those guys usually can be weight bullies. They can they can lose a lot of weight, gain a lot of weight. Doesn't affect them as much when they're drained. But a guy like Boots, who really is a high output, high energy guy, he just looked tired in this fight. Looked tired at the end. There's a lot of roughhouse stuff in the middle, different energy systems. He definitely looked a little bit tired, looked a little drained, looked a little worn. I saw him all last week. I was looking at the photos of him making weight. He's struggling. You can definitely see it. And now he's got 2 back-to-back performances where they're somewhat lackluster, even for especially for him. It just might be time to move up. And then we'll see what happens at 54 because these guys are big, man, and they can punch. So now you got talent. There's more talented fighters at 54 than 47, and they're bigger and they punch harder. So he's got to deal with those defensive lapses. He cannot be getting hit as clean at 154, and really at 47. There's good fighters there too that shouldn't be taking shots the way he is. So we'll see how he does in a new weight class if that is what he decides to do. But I think it is time for him to move up.
Yeah, Teddy, would you advise Boots Ennis to move up to 154? And if so, because he made comments that he would improve his defense, essentially saying he would improve his defense as the level of competition rises. Well, we know at 154, there's a massive level, great level of competition there. What do you make of the performance and then the possibility and the prospects of him moving up to 154?
Well, only he knows, his team knows, how much he drains himself for the weight. But listen, this is why it's a privilege to be on this show, because of what you just heard from both champions. To be with people that are smart, that really know the sport inside and outside, really, it is a privilege to be able to be with you guys and be with people that make you smarter because they're smarter. But listen, my approach to this, my answer to this, first of all, as far as the weight goes, yeah, I mean, Chris makes a good point. Those kind of guys, those twitchy kind of guys tend to be more hurt. And he's a twitchy, genetic talent sort of guy. They seem to be hurt more by a weight crunch than just the bruises, just the guys that come in and depend just on, their physicality in those kind of ways. But it definitely seems to be credence, not an excuse, but credence to that he might have to move up. What have we always said when the first thing we say when we see him? What a big welterweight, all that. But as far as his performance the other night, I'm not here to defend him. He doesn't need the defense. Nobody knocked him here. Nobody's going to knock him. Both champions were very, very specific in saying, hey, this guy's a special talent. He, doesn't change that. He's a top fighter. But what I'm going to say is that there are, first of all, his opponent, Karen, I'm going to go the easy way. I'm going to use his first name. I'm not as smart as the 2 champions. So I'm going to go with his first name, Karen, instead of messing around with the last name. He's a very awkwardly clever guy. And I think he caught him by surprise. I know at this level you shouldn't get caught by surprise. I'm going to start with that. I get it. We're pros. We don't get caught. We come prepared. I think he got caught by surprise. He was expecting a guy to run on him, move on him like he did the first time, have to track him down, go to the body, cut the ring down, and all of a sudden the guy's coming at him. And I think he got surprised a little bit in that kind of way. That's number one. And again, no excuse, but I think that is a reality. And I think another reality for me is that he might be like a Teofimo Lopez. What do I mean by that? Teofimo Lopez, I think both champions would agree. He's a very talented guy, but sometimes we don't always see all that talent. Sometimes we walk away saying, how good is this guy really? Did we overestimate him? Did this, did that, did this? We're trying to figure. And then other time we see him, he's spectacular. I think that he's one of these guys that might fight up or down to his opposition level. I think that's part, and again, no excuse for that. But I think that might be part. There's no doubt that defensively, no matter how you try to address it, there's no doubt that he has to improve defensively in those areas. There's no doubt about it. But I believe what he said in the post-fight press conference when he said in the ring, when they said to him, how do you improve your defense? It was very interesting. He said, right to the point. He said, fight better fighters. In other words, I get better when I'm fighting. When the risk is there, when I know that it's there, when I'm not taking a guy for granted. Again, you should never take anyone for granted. I think he took the guy a little bit for granted in certain areas. The guy's not a puncher. He expected him to move. You know, he expected to stop the guy. That was the only difference he thought. Not that he was going to win or there was a threat to winning. Just that I think I'm going to stop him this time. I think there should always be a threat. I think when there's no threat, when you think there's no threat, no urgency at all, nothing to make you nervous, to put you on edge a little bit, to get the pins and needles going. Of course, you got to control it. But when that's not there, I think you're missing something. And I do think that, again, he was speaking the truth, at least for himself, that if I fight better guys, I'm going to be more alert. And I'm going to be better defensively. Look, I still think there's a technical component to it, to him having to improve defensively. I think that he's too reactive defensively and not proactive. Where once he gets hit, he's moving his head, then he's surviving. But you got to be proactive. You got to do something defensively and have that mentality and that teaching before you get hit, before you get into that danger zone. I think he needs to be improved in those areas. There's no doubts about it. But I do think the things that I just laid out, I think that's a case to think about a little bit when you look at him and you look at his future prospects.
So, Teddy, you're saying that, there's something to see there, but we shouldn't overestimate it. Over-criticize it.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, look.
So in other words, you condone that kind of stuff. In other words, you condone that kind of stuff. He's talented. Let's leave it at that. I don't want to make like I'm kissing Nat King Cole over here. Sorry, Teddy. I couldn't resist. You got a good fellas. I couldn't resist.
No, I get it. I got to get up on my movie stuff, if I'm going to come in there with you. I mean, that's the one thing I got to do. I can't just watch fight videos. I got to freaking go back and watch more. I got to be like Ralph Crampton on The Honeymooners. I got to practice all the songs, to name that tune, and then hope that someone like Paulie don't hit me with the first one. Okay, who is the composer to Swami River? Ed Norton. I mean, for the people out there that understand that, they're going to understand that, and they're going to know why I love Paulie. But look, at the end of the day, to Chris's point, to your point, he's a very talented guy, and I'm not going to go backwards on that. But I do think he's human. We're human. We're not machines. There is that component that, sometimes you underestimate somebody. Sometimes you only get up, for certain things, and your talent can only be judged at its highest peak when you're up for those kind of fights. I think it might be unfair to judge them all for this. And on top of it, I don't think we're giving enough credit to Kareem. That this guy would beat a lot of guys.
Yeah. I want to see Chukhadzhian again at welterweight.
Me too. I want to see him in with all these younger fighters. I mean,
I think he would beat a lot of. He's awkwardly clever. He's a son. I'll tell you one thing. If I'm a trainer, back being a trainer again, I am a trainer. But if I was back active again and being a manager, because when I was a trainer, I was a manager too. Because you got to be if you're a real trainer. You gotta know who to say yes, who to say no, who to say maybe, who to say down the road we'll fight him. I'm not looking to fight this guy. No. First of all, there's not great reward for fighting him. And second of all, he's a son of a gun to look good against.
Yeah, it's going to be a long night either way with him.
Yeah, that certainly is for sure. By the way, I just want to change it from kissing Nat King Cole to George D. Metellus over there, just for ProBox TV's sake there. By the way, Eddie Hearn has been told by PBC that they can get him possibly get him a unification fight against Imantas Stanionis if they want it. So we'll see if that maybe delays Boots Ennis's move up to 154.
Let me ask a quick question. Can I just ask two champions a quick question?
Sure.
I'm just curious. How do you think he does right now against Victor Ortiz?
Against Virgil Ortiz?
Yeah.
Virgil, I'm sorry. Virgil Ortiz.
It's tough, man. It's So I don't know.
That performance made me question because
Yeah.
listen, I love that fight. I love the fight of Virgil and Boots. I liked it at 47. I like it even better at 54.
But I'll tell you, just losing to Virgil doesn't mean you're not world class either. I mean,
Right.
Virgil will beat a lot of world class.
Virgil's
fighters.
fantastic. I always
No,
lean,
but
I always lean towards.
But I'm not sure he beats Virgil.
Yeah, I
Unless
always lean
because
towards
of
Ennis.
his-
Now I'm not sure.
Unless because of his defensive shortcomings, he gets knocked out by Virgil Ortiz. Then it does do something, obviously.
Yeah, Virgil is not the kind of guy you want to have defensive lapses against.
Yeah.
Yeah, Virgil Ortiz is a knockout artist for sure. Well, great conversation there about Jaron Boots Ennis at 147 and 154. And of course, if he does move up to 154 and gets a fight at super welterweight, we will talk about it here on Top Stories. Reminder to scan the QR code, like, subscribe, leave your comments on our YouTube channel, and download the ProBox TV app where you can watch the watch along with the champs of the Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight. So turn on the commentary on Netflix and then listen to the champs give their commentary and their insights on the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul fight. And then December 7th, ProBox TV returns to Ireland. I'm George DeMatteis. This is Boxing Scene's Top Stories.
ProBox TV Contender Series. On December 7th, look for an all-out Irish war as Dylan the Real Deal Moran battles Tyrone the Mighty Celt McKenna at the top of a stacked ProBox-worthy card.
For more ProBox TV, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play. ProBox TV, your boxing channel.